All right. So, Ariel, thanks so much for joining us on Faith in the Struggle. I was thinking about having you on, like the struggle of the shirts that you wear. It's more of a struggle for me and everyone else around you. So that could be a different episode.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole show on that.
So probably anyone who's at Cornerstone, not everyone, but at least has seen you. You're around like barbecuing for one of the barbecues, men's ministry doing stuff for that, and of course a greeter a lot. So opening the doors, right, with your awesome shirts on, and but they may not know as often as you have now. I don't know if the camera probably doesn't show it, but a big boot around your foot. And so, which isn't that uncommon, except for the fact that you seem to have one like every year or so, like once a year. It's like
Half the year.
he's back in the boot again.
Yes.
So tell us what is happening. What is that all about so we can dig in a little bit?
Well, this last surgery I had was a couple weeks ago, and it was a follow-up to the transmetatarsal amputation I had done in October.
Which is, we heard amputation. So what does that mean?
That means they took everything off the top of the foot.
Okay.
Due to I just wasn't healing right, and they decided you can lose your whole foot, or we can do the amputation.
Okay.
And they did the amputation, and everything seemed well. But then all of a sudden, I started developing issues with the foot again, like a bone that wanted to come out completely on its own. And so we tried for a few months, ride it out with the boot. Wasn't happening. So a couple weeks ago, had another surgery where they removed another bone, and there was a big cyst inside the foot that the nerves were wrapped around.
So a lot of pain.
A lot of nerve pain.
Yeah. How many surgeries have you had on that foot?
On this foot, I've had about, I think, 10 on this foot.
Yeah. But you've had other surgeries too.
Yeah. But praise God, the stitches came out yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hopeful by Saturday I'll be in a shoe. You won't see the boot. Yeah.
Well, that'll be a new look for you.
Well, it'll be a very welcome.
Back to the Crocs.
That and maybe I'll wear flannel or something. I don't know, to be really.
I don't. That's too much shock for us. So why so many? What's the condition that you have that's caused that?
Well, I'm a type 2 diabetic.
Okay. How long has that been the case?
I was diagnosed back in 2003.
Okay.
And at that time, I was about 400 pounds. So I was significantly larger than I am now.
Sure.
And through the years, I totally ignored that diagnosis, and it got worse and worse. And then finally, in 2016, I got wiser.
Wiser about the weight or
the weight and everything, and my lifestyle, and things were changing. Also at home, I was in 2016. I was getting divorced as well, and that was messy also. So I guess it was a good distraction from life to focus on, hey, I got to do something or I'm going to be in big trouble.
Well, that's interesting because, a lot of times during those types of seasons in life, people will go one or the other. They'll either just kind of wallow in it and get worse, or say, I got to make some changes. So praise God, you decided the positive end of that.
Yeah. And I look back at it now, it was all the Lord. He set up these steps because I was, like I said, I was in the middle of a divorce, and Pamela came back into my life.
Your now wife.
My now wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just amazing what the Lord did, because it was not me. I thought I was making the right decisions. I was listening to what the doctors had to say. But I noticed that my faith was getting stronger.
How come?
I got divorced, was actually on my own for the first time in 30 something years.
Mm.
And I don't know if you knew this, but when my divorce got finalized, Pamela and I got married 2 days later.
Wow.
Yeah. Because
But how long? You were probably separated for a while.
oh yeah, I was separated for about a year and a half.
Mm.
And
What was that like? Clearly, things weren't completely sour in marriage, but
it was really scary because I was living with one of my daughters,
mm-hmm.
Danielle, who you met.
Yep.
Was living with her and my youngest daughter because we had to pull out. I left with my youngest daughter, Michaela, because there was domestic abuse perpetrated on me and my children. So we were done with it, moved in with my daughter, and then, like I said, it was the first time on my own.
You had been married how long?
33 years.
Wow.
5 children.
Now, did it go south at some point, or had it always been pretty rough?
It went south like 10 years in.
10 years in.
Yeah, and we, you know, I'll use the air quotes. We were Christians, but we weren't.
No, yeah.
Yeah,
In name only.
Yeah, in name only. Totally different. If you were to ask my kids now, I'm not that same person I was back then, you know. And I can only attribute that to the Lord.
Yeah.
You know.
Like what?
I'm praying every day. I'm in the Word every day. I'm you know.
So what do your kids see? It's different.
They see a peace.
Mm-hmm.
They hear and see me mentioning the Lord, but not being just wordy about it. They see my life.
Yeah.
How it's turned out. Yeah, it's just, you know, the Lord's been there the whole time. I didn't know it. But he through it all, you know.
So you get the diabetes. That was what,
2003. Yeah.
2003. So you kind of ignored it for like over 10 years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did. And then
was there, I mean, you were going through your divorce, but was there effects of the diabetes that were starting to come into play?
Yeah, I was well, no, I was just fat. I'll just come out.
Yeah, but there wasn't like the foot problems eventually.
I was having some foot problems.
Okay.
But they started getting.
Anyone who's 400 pounds probably is going to have some foot problems.
Yeah.
Eventually, regardless, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I had my first couple of surgeries back in 2013 and 2014. And then that was like, okay.
Yeah. That was a wake up call.
And then, I ended up getting the gastric bypass in 2016.
And that held? Okay. Or
yeah.
I know some people, it eventually doesn't work.
Everybody that was in our group, we had like 20 people in our group. I think there's only 2 of us that have kept the weight off.
Yeah.
You know, and I've lost, let's see, at my most, I was at 450. And right now I'm about 245. So a couple 100 pounds. And Michaela, my youngest daughter, always says, it looks like you lost a whole person.
You did? More than a person. Most people aren't even 200 pounds.
Yeah.
You know?
So
you think about it. That's a grown man that you. Yeah. That's like almost what you are now. We see you're like 240.
Yeah.
So you lost almost what you are now.
Right.
That's a heavy person hanging on my back all day. No thanks.
Amen. No. And you don't realize it until, you know, I look back at it now. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of weight. Been able to keep it off.
So what's different? Why are you one of the 2 people, do you think?
Well, I know with the gastric bypass, it's not just they reduce the size of your stomach, it's in your head as well. You have to learn
diet.
Yeah, you can't be in love with your food. That was my problem. I loved food. I was married to food.
So do you think because it sort of coincided with a big lifestyle change. You go from a really rough marital situation that's clearly going to cause you to be anxious and depressed to getting free of that. Pamela comes into the picture. It's obviously a far better situation for you. Is that one of the main reasons that like I now have a more of a reason, I guess, to get healthy?
Yeah, but I also, yeah, it is. And just getting up from a chair and not struggling with it,
Yeah.
with all that extra weight, and it's huge. It's a huge difference.
And the older you get.
Yeah, and I'm not getting any younger.
No.
You know.
What your body can do up till say, 40, 50, and then it's like, okay.
Listen,
I always say you don't see a lot of real heavy old people, right?
No, and I'm 62, but I feel like,
well, compared to how you were, how long were you that weight?
A good 20 years, 25 years. I was large because I got out of the service. I weighed 260 pounds when I got out of the Air Force.
Okay.
So I weigh less now than I was in my service days.
Yeah.
But
probably had more muscle back then.
oh yeah. No, I was in much better shape. But I feel like I'm 62, but I feel like I'm more like 32.
Yeah,
that's the energy I have.
Especially living all those years. What was the catalyst to the food addiction that you had? Like, what was it? Because you weren't happy, or is just like
I was not happy. I was very anxious. They've diagnosed me with anxiety and PTSD, so I had that all going on, and
PTSD from
the service and also from the first marriage.
Yeah.
The violence that was happening.
Yeah.
During that, and
when you say violence, what kind of violence?
My ex-wife was arrested 3 times for domestic abuse.
Trying to hit you and stuff.
Not trying, she did.
Yeah.
Couple times on me, and then she got arrested once for going after our oldest son. And
3 times.
3 times.
Did she use like objects to go after you?
One time she used a boat oar.
Oof.
She hit me in the head.
Wow.
Yeah. And the last time she specifically tried to take out, because I had a replacement right knee, she hit me that I came off the chair and she started hitting my knee, so I couldn't get up.
So when these things happen, because it happened multiple times, did you just, all right, we're going to try to make this work? Do you feel like it wasn't taken as seriously because you're the guy?
It's definitely not. When I say that story now, people look at me like, really? Look how big you are. You couldn't stop that? And,
an oar coming at you?
But I never even considered like, I would take the hit or whatever and just say,
right. You could have defended yourself, but then what's happening now is you're probably going to get the blame.
Oh, I would end up.
And you don't want to hurt her.
No, no. And I've taught that to my kids. There's absolutely no reason to put your hand on somebody else unless you're defending your own life or you're trying to stop something from hurting someone else. I think I didn't respond in a violent way. That has to be the Lord.
Yeah.
It had, though I wasn't living the Christian life I was supposed to be.
He had you
at the time.
Yeah.
He was there,
Yeah.
And now I can, I look back at it. All through the years, I said, I'm not angry, but I am angry about I call it my previous life.
Yeah.
I'm angry at myself.
Why?
I let those things happen. I wasn't a better husband. I wasn't a better father, So do I struggle with that? I struggle with regret every day, guilt.
What would you do differently, do you think?
Oh, I would definitely be like, okay, we are we're going to read the word every day. We are going to pray every day.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to church, and we're not just going to act like Christians. We are going to be Christians.
Yeah.
So if I could, I don't want to do it all over again because I wouldn't be sitting right here with you right now.
We can't. That's the point, right?
Yeah. You know, and I'm always, and that's it. I think things cleared up for me about, I want to say 3 years ago. It was like, it finally hit me. It was after a surgery. I was sitting in our apartment looking at Margaret. And Margaret's the big creeping aloe plant that I have. I was talking to Margaret, and it just hit me like, you can't fix what happened.
I thought you were going to say, hit me, I'm insane. I'm talking to a plant. It's the same thing as talking to a dog. They can't hear you. You just need to talk to someone who's going to listen. Plant doesn't even move.
Right.
Can't go anywhere.
Right.
Hostage. Sorry, I hit you to what?
It just hit me that I can't fix what happened.
Yeah.
And I can't fix the future.
Right. That's the biggest one, right?
I can only fix what's happening now. You know, and I've always been an overthinker, and I overthink things today, you know.
Right.
I was overthinking coming to do this.
Right.
You know, but you know, it just the Lord hit me with, stop living in the past and you can't do the future.
When did you go from, yeah, I'm a Christian, to like, maybe not where you are today? That's a process, but to like really start getting serious about the Lord. What was the catalyst for that?
It was when Pamela, we were dating at the time. We dated for about a year and a half, maybe. She said she wanted to go to church.
She hadn't, I mean, I know her parents have been, like, so she has some background.
Yeah.
But she wasn't
her
really.
Her mother was a Methodist pastor.
But had she been not really.
Oh, she was kind of like me, a Christian in word, in word.
Yeah.
But she said, and we were
started dating you, she's like, I need God.
Yeah. I need something because this is too much.
Hey, however he brings us.
That's right.
So she says, let's go to church. And
she goes, and so we were living in Milford at the time. I went online and I just found this church. I'm like, okay, it's like right around the corner from us. And we started going to that church. And in fact, that's where we met Jack and Mary.
Oh, right.
They used to come to this church.
Yeah.
They used to go to that church. And then they left.
Pine Street still or no?
It's called The Way Church, but it's on Pine Street.
It was the old Baptist. Pine Street.
Yeah.
Right, but they changed it and it was called The Way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I always credit Jack and Mary.
Yeah.
They're the ones that brought us here, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose the Lord in a way too, but, they were always encouraging us when they left. They were like, you should check this out.
They were, miss them.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're not here because they're
in a much better place. But I miss
for sure.
Miss them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, Pamela said, let's go to church. We started going to church and started opening up my eyes to, okay, I need to change. This is not the way I'm not supposed to be this vengeful person, and, you got to live in
Do you ever
peace.
wonder what would your relationship with Pamela have been different if you hadn't? Not that she's the same as your ex-wife. She's obviously not going to start hitting you with the words.
No.
But from your perspective,
if we hadn't have gone to church, we definitely would not be where we are today.
Yeah.
Because we have been blessed beyond being blessed, individually and as a couple, And I've known Pamela since the first grade.
Yeah.
We went through grade school, high school, everything. And I feel like I married my best friend.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. And it's the Lord, And even through all these surgeries and all this medical stuff that I've gone through, she's been there. She's like my rock. on
Yeah.
earth,
Yeah.
you know, and I wouldn't be here without her and the Lord.
Mm.
And so many people here at Cornerstone have helped me personally, and Pamela and I as a couple.
Mm.
I mean, obviously you've helped me tremendously, but people like Paul Cedia,
Mm.
you know, who I met right away, Jason Nixon,
Yeah.
Greg
Yeah.
Masadi,
Mm.
you know, guys like that have just come up beside me, you know, and
Have you ever had, besides Jack and Mary, of course, but have you ever had like feel like you've had community like that before in your faith?
no,
Yeah.
no.
Makes all the difference, doesn't it?
It makes a huge difference. And, you know, I feel like sometimes like for Cornerstone, we're getting so big and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you lose that community,
Mm-hmm.
you know, especially when you're dealing with some medical stuff that's puts you out of the community a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I think it's a great testimony to you having had put yourself out there. You and Pamela. So you have, maybe not everybody, of course, but you have those people.
Oh, yeah.
You're not, you know.
Yeah, and there's
But if you
other
hadn't done
people.
that, you can get lost in the shuffle.
Oh, yeah.
But you gotta like,
It's like how you always telling folks, hey, you gotta
yeah.
get yourself out there, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, I mean, I've made friendships with lots of folks, and it's through the community. It's through the Lord, you know, that's done that, you know,
So all those surgeries on your foot
and on my body.
and on your body. Yeah. What other kind of surgeries? You've had your back.
I've had that where they had to take out a infected spinal cord stimulator.
That's not the diabetes, right? Or is it?
That was
Complication.
put in to help with my neuropathy pain.
Okay.
Where there was no other, they were injecting me for years and stuff, and nothing was working, and all through all these medicines, and then they finally said, "Hey, how about a spinal cord stimulator?" I'm like, "Okay, you know,
Yeah.
sure."
Yeah. That doesn't sound terrifying.
No, no.
Stimulate
the
my
worst.
spinal cord.
And ask Pamela. She's like, she warned me too. She's like, I don't know if this is a good idea. And I said, no, the doctor's fine. And, you know, they put the first one in, and it got, and this was I think it was during COVID, or it might have been at the tail end of COVID. It got infected. And I almost died at the hospital because it was that bad. My skin was gray, and
Wow.
I think they used like 9 liters of saline to clean out the infection that was in my back. And what that was, and through it all, I just remember, I know the Lord, we had his peace, you know, because I was being maybe a little spastic, my usual self, but it wasn't like the pain was overcoming me. I don't think the pain's ever overcome me. And I just, through all of it, I will say I've formed a personal relationship with 2 of my doctors where we pray at the end of my appointments, where that was never,
No, it's not.
that's
very
not
normal.
the case. And during this last surgery, I told the nurses before they took me into the OR, like, okay, we're going to pray. I don't give anybody a choice anymore. I'm like, we're praying. And one of the nurses said, she's like, I knew I remembered you. You're the guy that prayed last time. And I'm like, okay, Lord, there's
There's worse things to be known as
yeah, no.
than the praying guy.
Yes. I've been called worse. So, but you know, through all of this, when you make an impact where a nurse remembers you from a year ago, or my doctor opens up with, hey, how's your family doing? And we're talking about family. We're not talking about,
Yeah.
and we're on a first
Probably
name basis.
a bit of a bad sign. It means you've gone to see him so much
so much.
that he knows you better than his own family.
Yeah, no
Probably
doubt.
not a situation we want to be
No.
in. However,
no
take
kid-
advantage
no
of it if
kids.
you are.
Don't do that. Don't do this at home.
No, no. Yeah, first lesson, if you get diabetes, take it seriously.
Yes.
Don't try not to get it. But if
Stay
you do,
away from the sugar.
yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, through this all, it's all the Lord.
Can you remember a time or two where you were like, I don't know, I don't want to say rock bottom, but you just were like, oh,
there
I'm
has
done with
been
this.
like
Many.
5 or 6, 7 or 8.
Any one's particular standout?
The first back stimulator, the spinal cord stimulator.
Yeah, when they said
I
you were
like-
gray.
Yeah, I was.
You were in the
like-
hospital at that time or out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and they were like, and I was like, Lord, why? You know, and I've never cursed the Lord.
Well, that's
But
good.
I've never come out really super angry either. Pamela will tell you, it's more I'm frustrated. I'm like, Lord, come on, give me a break. What am I? There have been times where I've said, what am I doing wrong? What is going on in my life that I'm doing this wrong? That you're causing this or letting this to happen.
So there was like a feeling that the Lord is not punishing you, but shaping you in some way.
It felt like punishment.
Yeah, it does feel like
It felt like I was being punished, either for what I did in the past, or what am I doing right now.
Did he answer?
He has answered. I don't know if you remember. You and I had a conversation last summer. I think we were getting ready for the men's barbecue.
Yeah, I remember that in the kitchen.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. And I just pulled you
Told you to watch
aside.
The
I'm like,
Chosen.
exactly.
I remember that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we spoke, and I think I was like, I talked about my frustration and everything. Like, why is this continuing to happen? And you pointed out the episode in The Chosen to watch, and
Yeah, with little James, right?
little James
Yeah. Yeah.
about his testimony, and that's why. Because he asked the same thing. He asked Jesus.
Yeah,
you
right.
know.
And Jesus was sending him out to heal a bunch of other people.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute.
And he said,
Can I just
why
touch my leg?
why not me? Please? Can I just have a little touch?
Yeah.
You know? And so that gave me so much more hope than I already had. First,
When there
I
was
get to have a
purpose.
one-on-one with you.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's life-changing. It is.
Here we are.
It's something
So the
else.
whole world can watch us have a one-on-one. Well, the idea there was there's purpose in the pain, and that's really, really hard when you're in the pain.
Yeah. And then you get used to the pain. I'm
Well,
used to it.
you've always amazed me. There's definitely things that I think, like you said, you overthink, and there's things where I'm like, why is that bothering you so much, right? So like, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that would drive me crazy, all that pain, you don't show it that often. Like maybe a bad thing, but you've become very good at enduring it.
Yeah, Pamela has seen a couple of ugly sides of me where the pain has overcome me.
Yeah.
But I am reminded there have been 2 instances. One time I was complaining about getting the amputation. And I was like, I got home and I'm like, Lord, why is this happening? I'm like, you can't let this happen. So it was a process, it was a few weeks. And I got to a point where it was getting close to, we had to make a decision, and I was getting really anxious, and I was like, I don't want to do, I'm complaining. And then in comes around the corner from the doctor's office, a man in a wheelchair, and he's missing one leg from below the knee. And I'm like, you know what? Okay. Like, I got the
I
message.
get it. Thank you.
I get it.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to pain and being, I don't want to say happy in the pain,
Mm-hmm.
but dealing with it,
Mm-hmm.
I see someone like Jennifer Nixon,
Yeah.
who's got it over me, with
Mm-hmm.
the stuff she has to deal with.
Yep.
And that kid she's so chipper, you want to just like,
Which shameless plug, but for those watching this, I had her on a few
Yeah.
episodes ago. So Jen
Yeah.
Nixon, see her story. It is
Yeah.
amazing.
She was the last one, I think.
Yeah, I think she was. Yeah, we
Yeah.
have one going out this week, but
Yeah.
yeah, she was very, very recent.
She's amazing how she deals with her struggle. So
She is.
I look at that and I'm like, who am I to complain when I see someone like that?
Yeah, once again, it just the theme here is how important Christian community is.
Yes.
And people don't, I don't know. People realize it, but some don't. And don't gotta go hear a sermon, the music, say hello to some people. And that's a great start. But if something like this goes wrong, you don't have those resources. You're alone, or you're with maybe your inner circle, or you got friends who are good. They're your friends, but they're not, if they don't know Jesus,
you don't have that commonality in Christ.
Right. Because it really changes how your viewpoint.
Absolutely.
If you're living for the world, then this is terrible.
Yeah.
Like it basically puts somewhat of an end to anything in this life. Not all of it, obviously, but a lot. It hinders.
Right.
Almost everything. And if this was it, the green tape, man, that'd be very depressing.
Very depressing.
What assuming we can get this thing to where there's no more complications, even with the amputate, like how does it still affect you? Like you can walk okay.
Oh yeah, I can. There was, after the amputation had healed, and can I circle back to community?
Yeah.
When that happened, the amputation, I had a lot of people, my inner circle that I have here at Cornerstone, they blessed us in different ways, Pamela and I. And I even reached out to Tony D, and I was like, "Hey, man, I'm in a scooter and I can't." He was out at our apartment. I had to get permission from the landlord. Tony was out there the next day building a ramp.
Not the first one he's built either. For
no,
somebody.
no. And this thing was This wasn't some rinky. This was a solid 2-day ramp, and it's stuff like that.
Yeah, imagine if it was just like you and Pamela basically, and your adult
and
children.
Family.
Yeah. That'd be really hard.
Yeah, it'd be really hard.
Yeah.
And it's all because of the Lord and Cornerstone,
Yeah.
that I can sit here and even do this,
Yeah.
because if I was my old self, I'd be like, I don't think so. I don't want to talk about this,
But it's also, hearing your story, it's also important to reiterate that it's a process. That's not like you said, all right, I started changing things 2016.
Right.
But then you're like referring to a conversation from last summer, which we're in 2025. That would have been 24, right? Yeah, summer of 24.
Right.
8 years later, and it's still, and if we do this episode in 3 years, you're going to have more, right? And so will I. So that's the point. Is like for people to not give up hope. Like, oh, I'm not where Ariel is, or I it's like neither were you at one point.
Right. No, and it's been through all the surgeries. I mean, you and I have had the conversation since 2016.
I'm a little tired of you having surgery, man. I got to be
33 surgeries.
33. It's a number of Larry Bird.
That's almost the perfect number. But,
it's almost a number of completion, but not really. The Trinity,
But all through those surgeries, it's built a level of trust in the Lord.
Yeah. So your prayer life much better than it used to be.
Yeah, I don't want to take a dig at the medical profession, but I don't trust the doctors.
Well, 33 surgery,
the Lord.
You have some experience to draw on. I could see why you have a few fears.
Yeah, but it's like you said, it's been a process. It's been a few years, and especially these last 2 years where, you know, I might have been called into your office because you've had to have a conversation with me, and
Yeah.
and I know that particular conversation, I was in between surgeries, and I was like not in a good headspace. I was like,
Yeah.
Lord,
Mm-hmm.
cut it out. I'm telling the Lord, cut it out. And it doesn't work that way.
No.
But
But he still wants to hear from you,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Even if he's like not going to be able to do that, but
Right. Yeah, not in your time. I've absolutely have learned through the Lord, through you, through Greg.
Mhm.
Not in your time.
Yeah.
It's in the Lord's time. You gotta just chill.
As the Bible calls it, long suffering.
and
Patience sounds easier. Long suffering.
and
That
I
sounds
used
harder.
to, my job in the service taught me to be very patient, very patient. And then through the years, I lost that patience, and it's taken me to this point where I got my patience back.
What are you hoping for now in the future?
To serve the Lord in a better way. That's
About your
truly.
health. You're hoping that.
I think my health is, I'm technically no longer diabetic. Everything has been under control for the last 3 or 4 years. And I'm still losing a little weight as we go along. I think physically, I just want to be able to go for a walk with Pamela,
Yeah.
take a mile hike, or something like that, but I feel like the Lord's rebuilding me by removing things maybe
Yeah.
from my body, he's rebuilding me, and not just physically, but also mentally and in my heart.
Yeah.
He's rebuilding me.
Yeah. It's funny. Not funny, but it's interesting that as he's taking away physically things that you probably wish didn't have to be taken away,
Right.
through that process, he's taken away spiritually, emotionally things that do need. He's chiseling you and carving those things out by doing that.
No, yeah, and you don't realize that in the moment,
Of course not. Yeah.
but when you sit back and go, huh, okay, that's why that happened, or, oh, I get it,
So what's your advice to somebody who's, whether it's a physical pain or it's just circumstances in life, especially when it's ongoing, because that's been really the case for you. It's not like it's like, okay, this was one thing. It was really bad, but we got through it. It's like it's consistent, maybe not as bad as some, but feel like you just turn a corner and boom, doctors tell me. So someone's going through something like that and they're despondent. They want to kind of just, what should they do?
I would tell them, if they know the Lord, to see, go speak to somebody that's really solid in the Lord.
Yeah.
Especially here at Cornerstone, there's lots of folks that you can reach out to and talk to somebody. And I would say, don't put all your trust in medicine or doctor's diagnosis. Take that information and then, I wouldn't say sit on it, but ponder it with the Lord. Sit with the Lord and wait for that voice or conviction or whatever it is. And don't isolate yourself. That's the worst thing you could do, because then you become your own little God and you think, oh, I can, this is the right decision, or that,
Right.
and,
Don't go on WebMD.
yes.
Yeah. Well, that's That's interesting how much experience you have gained that not very many, some certainly, because of 33 surgeries. You've had, it's not like I said before, one big one or just a few. That's multiple times to where the doctors tell you we need this or need to do this. And now you have to, maybe it's an obvious decision in some cases or not so in others, and really hard in some, in a few. I'm sure you have had plenty of those opportunities where you've really pondered it. Others you rushed into it. Others you didn't really talk to the God about it. So you are pretty much an expert in, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
But I think it's really good counsel for anything, whether it's physical surgery or any big thing that someone says you should do this in life. It'll help you. Be careful, right?
Especially like even with, I know that we're going down another road here, but like with your mental health during all this, you know, just because I have anxiety or PTSD, that, you know, I don't have to lean on that and go, well, this is, you know, I'm happy because I can't stop being anxious or anything. You know, you get that label, and sometimes you use that label as a crutch.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd rather use the label of being a Christian and lean on that. You know,
but that's when it gets real for people, when you're going through some things like that, where it's like, who am I?
Right.
How am I going to look at this situation? Not just inspired by some church service where the music was great and, you know, you heard a sermon and you're like, oh, yeah.
No, I've never been inspired by a sermon. I don't think I
don't blame you. But like, we all have those instances, but it's like really when you hit it, and it's like now, because I've been doing this a while now, and I've seen people go the other way where they're just like, God's not real.
See, I never got to that point. I can't even imagine saying, you know, God's forsaken me or what, you know, I never got to that point. I always believe and know that the Lord's there.
Yeah.
And there's a purpose to this.
Well, the enemy is always going to want us to not do or have what will actually be best for us. So the lie is, don't seek God when that's exactly what you need to do.
Right. Right. Yeah.
He did this. He doesn't love you.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That is the lie where, you know, you get that voice that says, and I've heard, you know, I've heard the voice of like, oh, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
You were such and such back in your first marriage. Now you're paying the price.
Well,
God's allowing this.
His name, literally, one of his names means accuser. It's what he does, is accuse you. And love, especially a believer, to accuse you of things that have been forgiven at the cross. And not just you, all of us.
No, right.
Like those lonely moments, and you can't sleep, and you start thinking about what you did. And
what is sleep? I don't know that concept. I'm hoping I get that concept.
That's a good hope for the future.
Yeah, get some sleep.
Well, it's again, one of the things that I would hope people would get out of your story is how important connection to other believers. It's just so critical.
Get in a small group, folks. You know,
get in a group, absolutely.
I've been in them. I've run them. I'm running one now, and that's, you know, you can. It's just amazing, just being in a room full of like-minded people.
Yeah,
and
you for them as much as them for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I sometimes get selfish that way. I want that community.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a good selfish thing to have.
Yeah.
A community.
Right.
Yeah. Well, again, the enemy works hard to tell people, No one likes you. You're not going to be. They don't want you in your group. You're not going to get anything out of this. Whatever the lies are, that's all to keep you isolated.
Right.
Like the nature shows. You know, we always say. You always see those videos. You're like, ooh, that zebra just went away from the pack. We all know what's coming next.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
You know? And it's like the same thing happens to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so I was just talking about this with one of our elders. And they said, you know, it's amazing how, I think it was Greg actually, it's amazing how quickly people will say, when times get tough, busy, difficult, they cut church out. They cut small group out. They cut.
It's the easiest thing to cut out, but it's the easiest thing to go to.
Yeah. It's also the dumbest thing to cut out.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's like when you need this the most. But again, it's like we believe the lie that, nah, I need this more, or that
Right.
more. And it's like, it just compounds itself.
Yeah. And besides the small groups, which I've always thought have been super important,
Yeah.
I would tell folks, you know, if you're a guy, go to a men's ministry event.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a woman, when the women do their thing, go to it. You know, if we do a church barbecue, which is coming up, go to that.
Look at you, always plugging always finding a way to plug.
Listen,
boy.
the
Marketing
youth ministry,
genius.
you know?
Well, though, when I think about some of the people you named were very integral for you, some of it's because it becomes a small group, right? But
Right.
You serve on the men's ministry team. So a lot of your connections, some of it's overlap, I realize, but your connections came from serving. They're not like a traditional small group. And I've always
Right.
said that. I mean, the best small group I ever was as an early believer was our youth leadership team that I was just a part of, volunteering, not as a pastor. And I was just saying, yeah, I'll help with the teens. I wasn't thinking I was going to make like lifelong friends and people who would be there for me and vice versa for years. Right. To this day, you know, we're not still serving in that, but most of them are at the church and still in my life. No idea. But just me saying I'll help and showing up, God did that because there's something bonding about serving together.
I agreed.
Yeah.
And I would say in my life, I never had any friends or intentional relationships. I think Christian used that term once. And
He's such a nerd.
That guy, what a nerd bomb.
I love him.
Somebody dropped a bomb on him and said, you're the guy.
Yeah.
You're the nerd guy. But
well, you know, that's a common problem for men. Well, I'm not saying not for women either, but especially men, and especially when we get into the zone of work, marriage, children, which you're like, I don't have time for that.
Right.
I don't have, I gotta, and there's some truth to that. It's a difficult season to form friendships, but man, it is so, you see it, you can see the loneliness that can happen. You don't know where to go if something's going on with your marriage, or you're not sure because you don't have that community. It makes all the difference to get at least one. You might be kind of an introverted person, so one or two, you know, friends who know the Lord, it doesn't mean you're always having these big, heart-wrenching conversations.
Right.
You're just having fun together.
Right.
And you learn to trust that person.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you need to be in contact with that person every day.
No.
You know, you don't have to.
No, guys are not really like that. You might send jokes or memes or something.
Right.
But for the most part, we're not going to be like, oh, how's your day doing? It's just not how, it's a little bit cliche, I guess. But for the most part, you're right. But you know they're there when you need them.
Right. And growing up, I didn't have very many friends in the service. I had one. But after the service, I really didn't have any friends. It was when I got, to the first church in
Milford.
I'm still talked to a few folks there. But when I came to Cornerstone, and we've been here it'll be 5 years, I think.
Yeah, COVID.
Yeah, it'll be 5 years. I got Paul, I consider Paul Cedia, Jason Nix. These are friends.
Yep.
For now over 3 or 4 years. And I'd be like, I got friends that long. Oy, oy, oy.
I'm shocked they put up with you that long.
Yeah, I know. Well, I do have a friend from back in my previous life, Eric Racine, who's a Christian. Um, and we've stayed in touch and we get together and stuff, but it's through the commonality of Christ because we don't agree on anything else but Jesus.
Yeah. But what else is there in the end?
Right. And
Yeah.
that makes it great. And even, with the guys here at Cornerstone, you don't see eye to eye on everything,
No,
of
course not.
We're together with the Lord. So that kind of just evens the playing field.
Yeah. And it has to be. The gospel lens has to be there because you think about a true local church, it's going to, everything else you do, you're defined by, say, age or by, what you're
Or
good
your
at.
health.
Your
Or,
health, what you're good at, your skills, what you're interested in, hobbies, your workplace. But at church, there's the 90-year-old lady and the 10-year-old boy.
Yeah.
There's nothing in common at all.
I don't want to be known. I don't want to be known as the guy that's, always, got something medically going on or
Too late.
or I don't want to be, labeled with anything except he's a Christian.
Right. In Christ. Yeah.
And he's in Christ. He's a brother and a sister to whomever.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who has someone in their life that's going through something like you've been through? What is effective that has been done for you and what is maybe not so effective?
I've had, and this was very effective, like with Job.
Mm-hmm.
His friends came and saw him and just were still.
Yeah. Great friends for a week.
Great friends.
Then
Yeah.
went downhill quick.
Right. But that having friends come up to you and not so much giving you advice, just letting you know, hey, we're here when you're ready. That's what I would
knowing
tell.
they're there. That's a common theme. I ask some often variation of that question to people on this podcast. And it invariably is the same. Might not sound exactly the same, the way they describe it, but it's be there.
Right.
Be there. And don't feel like you got to fix the problem because you can't.
Right.
It's okay.
And why are we there? The Lord.
Just,
It's
right.
the Lord.
It's his love for us.
Yeah.
And then we're a vessel of his love for
Just
others.
like how you said it, you get kind of the same answer in a different way from all these different folks that have done your podcast. What's the commonality? Christ.
Yeah, Jesus.
And
yeah. Don't shy away. Reach out. Even if they're like, yeah, I'm fine.
yeah.
Just keep reaching out.
Well, and my small group circle of friends know when I say, I'm fine, thank you. That's kind of like...
You're like a woman saying that? Oh, edit that out, Steve. I'm fine. Ooh.
No, I'll say like, hey, I'm fine. I'm
Yeah.
fine, thank you. They got to know that,
Yeah, I got to know pretty quickly too.
no, I'm not fine,
You're
but
not fine.
this is what you're going to see.
Well, the hard part, I mean, this is common, but for you, I can imagine a lot of it's like, listen, I'm sick of time. It's not like again, it wasn't like a one season.
Yeah.
It's like new for you. Now it's just like, oh, I'm tired of dealing with it. I don't want to keep talking about
Right.
it.
I almost have as many walking boots as I do Crocs, for crying out loud. And
Wow.
yeah. And
Could have
then,
a tag sale of walking boots. I don't know who would want to buy those, but
but I'm always going to keep one in the closet just because
Yeah.
you never know. But,
Yeah. But would you suggest though, there were maybe some times that you probably should have said, I'm not okay.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There were absolutely some times where I could see it in Pamela's eyes, like, you need to say, you're not good. You're not fine.
Right.
You need to
Say it.
you need to say it. Don't be such a tough guy. And I don't walk around being like, I'm a tough guy, but
No.
that's,
But saying but there's a time and place, obviously.
yeah.
You're greeting at church. So Like it's a major distraction. But for those who know you well, there comes a time sometimes you just gotta be like, I'm actually just having a rough day
Yeah.
or a rough season right now.
Yeah.
This is just getting to me. And
Yeah.
just admit it.
I would tell folks, don't be a tough guy or a tough gal. You know, know your limitations and then when you open yourself up, just don't open yourself up to, you know, Dick or Jane or what, you know, I can't think of a good example. Find someone that...
And at Cornerstone, it's Dick and Jan, Corey.
That's right.
They're great people to open up to.
Yes. And that was one of my first groups I went to.
Yeah.
Small groups was with them.
Yeah.
And, but by all means, open up to somebody.
Right. But again, it goes back to the community.
Right.
So if you have the community, now it's on you to open up.
Yeah. I mean, the community will come to you, but you got to meet that community halfway, at least halfway.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you also are a perfect illustration for how a church should operate, because sometimes, especially a smaller church, there's pastor,
right,
and then we're all here, on this level, and I need the pastor now. I need the pastor. I need the pastor, and it's like he's not going to be able to do that. And I'm not just saying me, but you know, even if you're 70 people, it's going to be tough for him to do that. But obviously, there are times where you need your pastor or a pastor, but you only needed that a handful of times because you had so many other people in your life, that could do more and pour into you more than I would have had the time to do.
Absolutely.
And so, or the ability to do.
Right. And especially when you threw me out of your office one time, I was like, okay, I'm done with this guy. I got to find community. I need a small group.
I'm glad that helped you. Because it helped me to get out.
Listen, exactly. And when we have this saying in the men's ministry group that when Greg has to fire up the Zamboni, that means Ariel's probably roughed up the ice somewhere and he's got to go smooth it out. So, you know, it's always good
to have someone smooth out your
ice before you go up to see the pastor or you know, somebody like that. So, no, and that is because we've had the conversation where you've said to me, I come from that small church mentality, where you go running to the pastor for everything.
All right.
No, it doesn't really work that way, you know.
And it's not going to be effective.
Right.
Yeah. It's going to be far more effective to go to those who can actually help.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll just make it clear. I'm not usually kicking people out of my office. People are like, "Oh shoot, I was going to go see him." Maybe it was help. Thank you for keeping me not busy.
I just freed up your schedule. You're welcome.
Oh man. Well, our prayer is that we got a good season of no walking boots, but we can't guarantee that, can we?
No, listen.
It's one thing I've learned in 5 years with you.
I'm not going to say hopefully. I'm prayerfully this weekend.
Well, I'd also invite anyone who maybe, you know, I would say most people who have been to Cornerstone for a little while would at least know your face, because you are involved in a lot of things, which is great. But maybe didn't know your story, kind of saw you limping around a little bit and like, well, whatever.
What's that guy's deal? He's always in a boot or
something. Croc in a boot, croc in a boot. The boot actually looks better than the croc.
That's a whole other podcast we could talk about.
Yeah, that's just me talking. Episode Jamie and the Struggle of Ariel. Could be a good episode. I'd enjoy it.
You know,
might be too long. We don't have to like make it into a
sermon.
Could be like a mini series.
Yeah,
a mini series of like episode 1. Yeah, the early years.
Flannel or Crocs.
Flannel or Crocs. Yeah, but hopefully now, you know, not just to know your story, but you know, for those where it'd be appropriate to go to you and to say, hey, I'm dealing with something, and that's what it's all about. Is one of the major blessings of this podcast is for people for the veil to kind of come down and for people to see everybody's story.
Right.
And they're not all this big dramatic thing. They're just life, and it's hard.
It is just life, and you're right. It is hard.
Yeah.
And we make it harder on ourselves.
Yeah. We do. The more we try to sit on that throne, like you said earlier, the harder it gets.
It's not a throne you want to be on.
No. Imagine
Definitely
trying to control the world. Like,
I can't even control me.
I know.
You know, how am I
here
going
we
to
are.
control the world?
I'm going to control what happens in, politics, and I'm going to do that. Like, you're going to do nothing.
Right.
Nothing. You do nothing.
Yeah.
Even if you actually have a position it can do, so you still do nothing.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
I feel like I'm the writer of Ecclesiastes right now. It's all hebel. It's all meaningless. But that's the whole point of the book, is that it isn't meaningless. It's for you to try to control it. That's meaningless.
Right.
Instead, sink deeper into God's grace and the gospel, and start to see things the way He
You got to
does.
trust them.
Yeah.
You got to, and especially when you're doing well,
Yeah.
that's when you even got to trust them more.
Yeah.
You know?
That was Josh's sermon this past weekend, was like, hey, where are you, God, when I'm happy?
Right.
Really good way to start the sermon series out. Just say, hey, some of the most dangerous places to be are when things are going, quote unquote, well.
Yes.
I know that's been the case for me. I've said, God, why can't I grow during good times?
Right.
And his answer has always been, that ain't my fault.
Right.
I don't think he used the word ain't, but he might have. That's not my fault, Jamie. That's you.
Right.
Right. So the more in happy times that you can say, no, I'm going to continue to engage in the word, prayer, ministry, church. Don't go away and then come back. Now, people only see you when things are going terrible.
Yeah, it's not like a first. It's not like
People
a
get
first.
tired of
aid
seeing
kit,
you, honestly.
You know. Yeah, I know.
The only time they see is when you're going, it's horrible. Life is terrible. And I'll tell people like, hey, I don't want to bother you, but I just want to tell you something good that happened. Please do. Tell me the celebrations of life. I want to hear them. It doesn't mean I don't want to hear people when they come with their struggles, but yes, tell your pastor, your small group leader, or like when something great and there's a huge blessing. Because we don't do anything about that. We can just rejoice with you.
Yeah, you don't. That's not the first thing on your mind that you want to share. Hey, I just had a great day. Or,
Yeah, man.
But
Something good just happened.
But when something bad happens, that's the first thing you share, or you don't share it, and then you start building up and building up and building up, and then it's could be too late. Especially if you don't have the Lord.
Yeah, that's a key. The key.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me
to share, and hopefully,
I feel sorry for the folks that have to watch this, but
they have their own struggle. We'll have them on. Tell me what it was like watching a podcast with Ariel. All right, man. We will see you in the future.
Yes,
have
sir.
a good season. All right, brother.
You
Thanks
as well.
And cut.